Hey Ubers, welcome to Gratitude Friday. I've got a lot to show you today and a lot to talk about. It's been a very exciting week. I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about Facebook. Over the last couple of months, I've been liking various manufacturers, card-making magazines, vendors on Facebook. And so now when I visit every morning, I get a smorgasbord of inspiration as I go down the news feed. Uh, any of those that I just listed will be making blog posts, listing challenges, contests, tutorials, and there's just so much inspiration to be found. So I just suggest, if you're really interested in card making and paper crafting, that you start doing that, because Facebook has changed into something completely different for me. There's a stamping royalty contest going on right now. This is from Paper Crafts Magazine and a whole bunch of different manufacturers. There are different card making categories that include like thinking of you, thank you, Christmas, love, and I suggest that you enter. You have a couple more days before the deadline to actually mail them out, and if you win, you get just a ton of goodies. I found Hampton Art. I mean, I've been using Hampton Art for quite a while, various of their products, and I had no idea that those products were produced by Hampton Art. So go ahead and like Hampton Art on Facebook if you're a Facebooker. Check out their website and check out their catalog online. They make stamps for all these awesome brands. I just ordered a couple, and I'm going to show them to you in a little bit because they just arrived. But they also produce all these inks and pearlized inks, and it's just amazing. So, I looked at their online catalog several days ago, and I literally have a page full of wish list items that I'd like to get from them. Now, this is what you might know Hampton Art for. They're footlongs. Various stamps I've found at Michael's. I don't know if I found them at Joann's, but the major hobby stores. We're going to use Best Wishes today. I use that happy birthday one a lot. So these are sentiment stamps, and they're very versatile. I go to them all the time for, especially these ones for sentiments that I need. But you see that little flower? That's a nice graphic little flower. And you can also, and this is something, they also produce Ditto. And I love the fonts on that they choose for their sentiment stamps. They're really funky. And I've used them for a couple years now. So they produce Ditto. So it's just such a find. This is Graphic 45 stamp set. And, I know a lot of people are really into Graphic 45. I love these stamps, as you know, because they have so much detail. And I love detailed stamps. This is a set for The Wizard of Oz. And, you've got the lion, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow. You can make so many different cards about love, courage. So just go check them out. They're also having a design team call, and you have a couple of more days to get an application ready for that as well. Okay, enough about Hampton Art. I've been going on nature walks. The most recent Paper Crafts submission call asked for natural elements. So I just harvested everything on my walks. I harvested these leaves, which are a nice silvery green. I also harvested these seed pods that have been falling from a tree that grows where I live in Las Vegas. And if you open it up, you crush it, you get all of these individual seeds that have this soft, fuzzy tip that reminds me of like little umbrellas on some tropical paradise. But anyway, you can experiment with those. I have been experimenting with them, trying to come up with different ways to add texture to my cards. Um, and I haven't really come up with anything that's feasible quite yet. They're very delicate. Um, but we are going to use the leaves today, and I'm so excited to show you what I've come up with. Um, I also, we have a duck pond. I don't know if I've told you that, but every morning when I walk the dogs, that's the poopy bag. There's no poopy in it, but I did use it to harvest some feathers. The mallard ducks and the geese, they quibble quite often at the pond, and I think they pull out each other's feathers. And lucky me, I was able to harvest a lot of those. So I used some of these to create some funky flowers to submit to this most recent papercraft submission call. It had been a while since I submit. I'm really glad I did it because it just got me really activated. I've been really productive craft-wise the past week or two. Isn't that gorgeous? So once again, I love texture. It's a great way. You play around with it and you can add some great texture to your cards. And this is all stuff that I found on my walk. So I think since I've been crafting and doing artsy, fun stuff a lot in the last several months, I go on my walks with a much more open mind and much more open eyes. I look at everything a little bit differently, and I'm always on the lookout for things that I can use to decorate my 5.5 by 4.25 blank canvas. So we're going to cut the leaves off of a branch of this eucalyptus tree. I don't know if you have this type of tree growing where you are, but hopefully you do. I think I see a lot of these. I've seen a lot of these on the West Coast, which is where I've spent the last 20-some years of my life. If not, like just what I showed you, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can use to bring a more natural, organic feel to your cards. So this is a stamp pad from Colorbox, which is also Hampton art. And it's in the color copper, and I'm just brushing it against my leaf very carefully. This stamp pad I got a long time ago, and it's still totally juicy. So, I've been using my frost white quite a bit with my craft and playing around with that combination. But for the colors that I'm using today, I just felt like this lent a very gilded feeling. It's a way of gilding your leaves. So after that, you want to tap. I just put it into my clear embossing powder and tap off the excess. And then you're just going to want to set your heat tool on it. And it didn't seem to respond badly to the heat tool. I was a little bit worried about that, but it actually seemed to get a little bit more malleable. And if you want to flatten it out, I'd suggest right after using the heat tool. This is always fascinating to me how that happens. You can, make sure it cools off just a little bit and then set it underneath an acrylic block to create a flatter surface. But I really like those curled edges. And there you go. I found this to be so gorgeous. And I think this kind of effect can be used really nicely on vintage type projects. It's gorgeous. So from here on in, I'm going to speed it up a little bit because otherwise this is going to be a really long video. And I just wanted to show you this first because you can use that on any project that you're working on, and whatever design sensibility you have. Um, but this is the card. I'm going to use it in a certain way for the card that I'm making today, and that's what's going to follow. So this Best Wishes stamp from the Footlongs set, and I believe this is the Thank You Footlong set. I've been using it a lot. This Best Wishes stamp in particular, it's got a nice balanced shape and a good amount of solid area. The sentiment is actually the non-stamped part. So I think because I'm going to be using this as a background stamp, I'm going to repeat it over the card front. It's good that it has a lot of solid inked area. It's also good that the stamp has a sort of diamond shape, because then as you stamp over your card front and you nudge the one row into another, it really creates a feeling of cohesion in your background. So I'm just putting a tiny, tiny bit of adhesive on the back so that my card front doesn't move around. This is a piece of cardstock from Paper Tray ink, and I'm using my Juicy White Color Box Frost White ink, pigment ink. And I like this scrap pad that I always use because it has a grid pattern on it that has divisions every inch, and it helps me line the stamp up by eyeballing it. And we're just going to stamp that sentiment all the way across the card front. So using a nice sentiment to create a background stamp is nothing new, really. But I think, the last video I made, I was complaining because the stamps I had owned for a long time were starting to bore me. And I really wanted more stamps, but I didn't want to spend any more money. But, if you look through your sentiment stamps, some of them have beautiful shapes and ornate designs, just like this one. And as you repeat the design across the page, it's very calming. I find that that's the case with a lot of activity that's repetitive. And you don't need to put a sentiment on there because it's already in your background. So these are papers from My Mind's Eye. This is their A Beautiful Life set, I believe. It's been out for a little while. They've got some really nice new papers. But I am making a commitment to use the papers that I have before going on to new stuff. And I'm using an Inka-Dinka-Doo stamp that I've had for a while. And I'm going to be doing some paper piecing today. I typically am not a paper piecer. I haven't really done that much of it. But I have to tell you, even though it was very labor intensive and kind of exhausting and hard on my back, I'm going to do this on tracing paper as well. I can't stop doing it. I keep making more and more cards with the same stamp and doing the paper piecing. I don't know if you've had that experience. You can let me know in the comments section. So I'm using Colorbox brown ink, pigment ink, because I'm going to heat emboss this pattern on the tracing paper. And ultimately I decided to do the same thing with the pattern papers. I did not use the dye ink in the end. I liked to have that little bit of gloss in the outline. And then I cut the shapes out, cutting out spaces for petals that seemed like they were in the background. So isn't that beautiful? Lots of detail. So we're going to layer the patterned papers with the translucent paper, hopefully to create a pleasing effect. So in this next section, this is what I call getting intimate with your paper. It's a little bit fiddly, but I actually really enjoyed this next part. So I cut slits down where the petals separated, where you could see divisions between each petal. And I'm very carefully curling it as if my finger were a bone folder. And I'm just randomly choosing petals to curl upward. And see how we're separating the petals. And the nice thing about these pattern papers is that they're double-sided. Sometimes, sometimes I have mixed feelings about double-sided papers because I will love both sides of the paper and feel as if, I'm losing out if I cut out an image or use it in my card because I'm not getting to use the other side. But for a project like this, where your card has dimension, it's a really nice little surprise to see that little pop of color come from underneath. So you're going to want to curl the petals of the flower in both directions if you're looking for this kind of effect. I thought it added an interesting element to my card. And, we already curled various petals upward. Um, Now I'm taking the larger chunks and curling them downward. I'm folding them right where they connect to the central portion of the bloom, and then using my fingers in the same way to curl the petals downward. The way I am hoping that the blooms will maintain their shape is to adhere very small pieces of dimensionals to the arch of that formed um, group of petals. And that way, when they sit on the card front, those um, those sections are sort of laying on the piece of dimensional. So, the dimensionals may peek through a little bit, but when you're looking at the card straight on, you won't see it at all. Now, when I adhere these blooms to the card front, I'm very intentionally using dimensional at this point because I want that translucent paper to sit up off the card front, just so that we don't waste the effort that we took to cut out those translucent blooms and appreciate the effect that they can have on the card. So I decided for this card to to put everything on my card front sort of radiating out from a central point. So the blooms are very closely placed next to each other, but not so close that you lose any of the detail on each petal, because we did a lot of work to create these flowers. And here are our magical gilded leaves that we haven't seen since the beginning of the card making video. Um, but you want to take some time to figure out a way to arrange them on the page. I used a light peach grosgrain ribbon, and actually, you know, and I put some snail along the inside edge of the ribbon to hold it down. But ultimately, I think that that was a mistake. I mean, it's cute enough, but once the card was complete, I think I would have liked it if better if the ribbon had been a cream color. Um, I'm sort of feeling like that peach takes a little bit away from the the color pop that you find in the blooms. So once I got the leaves in an arrangement that I found pleasing, see how they're all sort of radiating out from a central point. Um, I put them on one of my best friend adhesives, glue dots, because those are some sticky suckers. So I stuck them, just one glue dot at the base of the most concave portion of the leaf, and stuck it down there. But see all the texture, that sheen? that I think is just subtle enough. So I'm going to show you a little shot of another card I made using the same background, same sentiment stamp for my background. I'll show that to you in just a little bit. Um, but, uh, you know, the best wishes sentiment stamp is, I feel, classic. That bottom corner needed a little bit of interest, so I popped some pearls on the bottom corner, which I've started to do pretty regularly. Um, but yeah, I'm going to do a lot more of this, and for some of my recent submissions, I used a variety of different sentiment stamps to create classy looking backgrounds. And I think this is a very formal expression, so you'll see at the end I sort of changed things up a little bit to make it kind of, to put a little comic twist on it. But sometimes, you know, putting a sentiment banner on my card doesn't feel right. I don't want to do it. This is a great way of avoiding having to do that if it messes with your design. I ended up putting some buttons on the fronts of my blooms. Um, it was difficult to see that central portion with that pattern paper that has the chevron stripe, so this seemed to work better. Um, I've been photographing my cards in the mornings. I've got a great window, corner window, and there's a lot of light, and with that light you can get a better sense of texture and shadow. So I'm really psyched about doing that. Um, I was telling my man last night, and I actually posted on Facebook too, that, you know, as the day came towards its end, I started thinking to myself, wow, you know, there's so many things I really want to do tomorrow morning. I'm so excited about tomorrow. And it was such a funny, wonderful moment because, you know, if I went a year back in time when I was working my buns off and exhausted, I never looked forward to the next day the way I do now. And it was just sort of a nice fast forward check-in because I've just been so happy um, crafting my heart away on a daily basis. And there are just not enough hours in the day. So, you know, there have been a lot of contests and whatnot, but, you know, regardless of the outcome, design teams, whatever, it's one of those things where I'm just going to keep doing it because it feels so good, and I'm really feeling like, you know, if you visit me on my blog, I've felt like this for a long time. It really is a way. It's not just, you know, a mindless activity. It really is a way of cultivating spirituality. So anyway, here's that shot that of a card I made for my aunt. She's an actress and just really a funky lady. So it's a way of putting a little twist on the best wishes because best wishes is so formal. Um, and here I used the same sentiment on black cardstock, and I actually printed out my own little sentiment on a piece of white cardstock. And that's the little polka dotted paper from Echo Park's, I forget what it's called. It's their love line. It came out shortly before Valentine's Day. But anyway, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'm so happy with the steady stream of subscribers that keep coming in. And go ahead and visit me on my blog, contadinak.wordpress.com. And you can also see some of my artwork if you click the link on the right-hand side of my blog page. Thanks so much for watching, and I can't wait to show you other stuff I've been working on. The sewing machine is out, so I'm thinking one of the next card making videos is going to involve some stitching. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Gratitude Friday. I hope you're able to find inspiration from nature this weekend and get outside if the weather's nice, even if it's not, and, you know, open your eyes just a little bit wider to see what kinds of really organic elements you can incorporate into whatever projects you're working on. Can't wait to share with you another video next week, and thanks again so much for watching. Bye.